Okay, the feedback sandwich thing is not just for the person on the other side to receive it because they're too weak to hear feedback. It's also good for you. It's good for you to force yourself to stop for a second and think about what it is you're about to say. Not just jump to the thing that you're pissed off about and say, you suck at doing this, you should be better at it. No, take a 2-second break. Think about what you're grateful for, how we can improve it, and then reinforce that. Hey, welcome back to the show. It is Saturday, which means it's time for our strategy sprinkle. Strategy sprinkles, if you've not been here for a Saturday show before, are a quick, short format episode where I share a practical, tactical tip for living a completely successful life in both your personal and professional realm. Other formats, if you're new here, let me just go through real quick. Mondays, I have a Mindset Monday episode, which is a positive perspective to help you walk through the week with. And every Wednesday, I sit down with someone who I've done some life with, and we have a long form episode, your traditional interview type, but they are entirely unscripted. They are unguided. It is just me and a friend who I've done some life with, sitting down, having a real raw conversation, and we just kind of let that conversation happen organically and invite you to come along for the ride. Those conversations are meant to share some struggles, some successes, some triumphs, some lessons learned along the way. And honestly, they are some of the most enjoyable conversations that I could possibly have. And I learned some things even sitting on this side of the realm from asking the questions and having the conversations, because when you can sit down with someone and have that real raw conversation, and good stuff comes from that. And along those same lines, I want to talk to you today about something we call the feedback sandwich. All right, let me start you off with a stat here, because people love stats for some reason. I'm sure there's a stat to back that up, but I don't have it. 92%. Okay. The Center for Creative Leadership did a study, and they found that 92% of people responded positively to feedback when it was delivered appropriately. Okay, let's consider that for a second. 92% of the people who received some form of criticism responded positively when it was delivered appropriately. And that, I think, is one of the more important things that you can learn, which is why we're talking about the feedback sandwich here today, is how to deliver criticism, feedback, opinions in a proper and productive way. Now, just to jump right to it, the feedback sandwich. Okay, let's explain what this is, and then let me walk you through a little bit more in depth. The feedback sandwich is, when you think about building a sandwich, okay, you've got your 2 layers of bread, top and bottom, and in the middle, you've got the meat or cheese, if you're vegan. Not sure why that was important, but I like to be accurate. All right, so either way, we're building a sandwich here, okay? And that sandwich, the bread, the top and bottom layers, are generally positive things, okay? The meat in the middle, vegans bear with me, or do your thing. The meat is usually the harsh or the more touchy subject, which people may not respond as well to. So the concept of a feedback sandwich is give them something good, give them something not so good, and then finish off with something good. And it's meant to make it not so harsh for people to receive that negative, or what they might view as negative criticism or feedback. I don't love the feedback sandwich, okay? I think the further you get into this and the better you get at building relationships with people, you will rely less and less on feedback sandwiches, because you've kind of developed that understanding that the thing that you're saying is not harsh, whether they want to hear it as harsh or not. Now, we've talked before about what happens in communication. You've got those four concepts: what is said, what is heard, what is meant, and what is understood. Yeah, those are the four parts of effective communication. And a lot of times, when you deliver negative or perceivingly negative feedback to somebody, they're going to receive it different than you mean it. Okay, because even though we all have room to improve, no one likes being told what they're not good at. It doesn't always feel good. And if you are not in a spot where you are ready to receive that feedback, you're going to push it away. So what the feedback sandwich is meant to do is to kind of camouflage it in there, to hide it, and give you a vessel to deliver that. Think about like, I don't know, a good example. If you're trying to feed a kid and you're trying to feed them some Brussels sprouts and they don't want to eat them, and you disguise your fork as an airplane and you go, ooh, airplane with the fork and the Brussels sprouts, and you go try and feed them, you're distracting them from the thing that they might not want. That's basically what a feedback sandwich is trying to get them to think about the positive before and after, and later let them digest the negative feedback that you gave them. Okay? Feedback is critical for improvement. And that's in your professional realm and your personal realm. That's conversations that you have with your partner, conversations you have with a boss or an employee. All of us have room to grow. Okay, you and I, expect certain things out of relationships. We expect people to act a certain way, to provide for us in a certain way, to interact in a certain way. And if they don't know it, which the majority of the time the other person has no idea if we don't properly communicate it, they can't really deliver on it. We can just hope that they're going to do the thing that we want them to do. So where feedback comes in, okay, let's walk out a real example of this. Someone on my team, okay, my web dev team, if I expect them to handle a emergency a certain way, I can hope that they just think the same way I do and do it. And if they don't, I can get upset at them, yell at them, tell them they should have done it the way that I did it, and maybe that'll be it. Now, if they don't, and they do the thing that they were just assuming was the right way to do it, I, as their leader, want to show them the way it should be done. Okay, so there's going to come a time when I have to say, hey, thank you for doing this. Here's what I would have done. Okay? And you are guiding them, you're correcting them, you are giving them feedback on the proper way, the way that you expect this thing to be done. Now, that could be how you want your clothes to be folded, could be how you want the bed to be made, how you want anything to happen. Whatever your expectations are, whether they are physical, whether they're emotional, whatever that is. You have to be able to communicate those expectations properly. Otherwise, the odds of you being disappointed are going to be near 100%. So let's walk this out a little bit further. I sit down with my employee and say, hey, thank you for doing that. I genuinely appreciate how quickly you handled that. Okay, there's a positive. First layer of bread. In the future, here's what I want you to do a little bit differently. Instead of doing it this way, let's do it this way. There's your negative. Okay, and again, that's not really negative. There's nothing really bad about giving someone some opinion, some feedback, unless you make it bad. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a second. But you finish off by thanking them for the dedication and carrying on with your day. Okay, there's a typical feedback sandwich. You've got some positive, some negative, some more positive. The goal of feedback is growth. Okay, you have to understand that. Both sides have to understand that. What winds up happening is a lot of people come into situations and conversations with a little bit of ego and pride. They come in with a little bit of hurt, a little bit of trauma from other conversations, other relationships. And it takes a lot of work to get to a spot where you are not easily offended. If you look around, most of the successful people you see are not easily offended. That comes from doing a lot of work, removing a lot of the ego and pride, again, being able to accept feedback, because they know feedback is the only way you're going to grow. But realistically speaking, that work sucks a lot of the time. Again, it takes a lot of dedication, it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of disappointment. It's not always fun. Okay, the end result is growth, and growth is awesome, and it's got all the things that you want in life. We've got to get to that. Right now, we've got to be realistic with where we're at, what our starting point is. So most of the people that you talk to on a day-to-day have likely not done the work yet to accept that feedback is meant for growth. Okay, they haven't done the work yet. So most of the people around you are going to have that quick reaction. We're going to jump to an extreme. They're not going to hear what you say. Okay, they're just going to hear a thing. Oh, it's never good enough for you. Nothing I do is ever right. Let me know if any of those conversations sound familiar to you. Right? You can't ask for any type of indifference. All right. There was a time when my wife would say, "Hey, when you do the laundry, make sure you separate the socks from the shirts," whatever the example is. My reaction at the time was, fine, you do the laundry. I'm just trying to help. And you kind of get back into this negative space where nothing is ever good enough. I'm trying to do the right thing, but you're never appreciative. You never say thank you. It's not the feedback. Okay, it's the healing the other person has to do. You can't force that. Right? So what you can do is be cognizant of where that other person's at. Take a break for a second, take the temperature of what the other person's going through, and understand when you go to give that feedback, deliver it in a way that they're ready to receive. Then the other part of that, like we said before, the 4 parts of communication: what is said, what is heard, what is meant, and what is understood. Okay, that goes to both sides. So you got to realize when you are giving feedback, you have to be cognizant of what is heard and what is understood. A lot of us say, all right, well, I said something. And as soon as you say it, you think the onus is off you. You've said a thing, and now you're done. You just sit back and wait for the rest of the conversation to happen. That's not really how effective communication works. Effective communication involves active participation from all sides. Okay, so if I say something to you, and I see that you do not receive it in the correct way that I meant it, don't jump to instant overcorrection or reaction or being pissed off or an argument. You slow it down. You say, hold on a second, let me explain better, because I don't believe that you have received what I meant. Right? So maybe you didn't explain it properly, maybe you didn't vocalize it properly. Maybe they just heard it indifferently. Maybe they heard it from a perspective of a past conversation, a past trauma, a past issue that they've dealt with. Okay, so they're receiving it through a filter. You got to be understanding of all this when you're looking at how to give and receive feedback. Feedback is the most important thing you can possibly do. It is what enables you to get 1% better every day. Whether that's feedback in your relationships, feedback with yourself. Growth is dependent on constant feedback. Okay, feedback is not the problem. How you deliver it, kind of important. Right? So the feedback sandwich. As you begin to walk this out, I want you to try layer up that positivity. Okay? Don't overhand it. Don't be super, don't make it weird. right? Because that's not fun for anybody. Then they can tell you're just BSing them, right? People can tell when they're being BSed pretty easily. But what I want you to do is I want you to actually genuinely think about what you're appreciative of. Okay, and that's going to help you too. Because a lot of times when you have feedback to give, your instant reaction is going to be, I'm pissed at you because you did this and you should have done that. And you're not going to stop to think about, why are you grateful for they handled it quickly? They handled it with integrity. They also had this going on. Okay, so when you stop for a second and force yourself to think about, how do I add in a positive before and after? It'll also remind you of the things that you should be grateful for and not let you jump into just the negative. Okay, the feedback sandwiching is not just for the person on the other side to receive it because they're too weak to hear feedback. It's also good for you. It's good for you to force yourself to stop for a second and think about what it is you're about to say. Not just jump to the thing that you're pissed off about and say, you suck at doing this, you should be better at it. No, take a 2-second break. Think about what you're grateful for, how we can improve it, and then reinforce that. Okay, because it's again, I've said this a lot of times. It's not me versus you. It's not, I want this done a certain way and you suck at doing it. It's you and I are on the same team, and that's the goal. So how can we come together to use our time, talents, and treasures, our gifts, to reach the goal better? Okay, so if I have a different perspective than you, and I see a way that you can improve, that's going to make the goal better, faster, or quicker, I should be able to tell you that, and you can receive it because you understand it's not me versus you. I am seeing something from my perspective that you may not see. So when I tell you that, you have to understand it is for our mutual benefit. Okay, it's not because I want it a certain way and I'm a dictator. It's a perspective that I'm seeing that you might not see. And that's the importance of having good friends who are willing to call you out on your crap. Sometimes we don't see the things that are right in front of us because they are right in front of us. But when you've got other people in your life to give you that feedback, then you can see the proper way to do it. So let me just give you this one tip. Or I guess, not really a tip per se, but I want to give you a challenge. Throughout this weekend, I want you to practice this at least once per day. Even if you don't fully vocalize it. Okay, even if you don't go out and say positive, negative, positive. Even if you just think it to yourself before you say the negative. Start considering what to be grateful for and me and you versus the problem. Okay? That is going to be one of the most important things that you can do to improve your relationships, to improve teamwork, to reach more complete success. And again, this is critical in business and personal life. With your kids, with your spouse, with your friends, with your parents, with whoever you want to apply it to. Avoiding the argument, avoiding the hurt feelings, avoiding people being offended, just getting to, hey, here's the thing that we can fix that's going to benefit both of us, helps so much. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to apply that at least once per day. And I want you to come back and I want you to let me know how it makes you feel. Give me the pros, give me the cons. If you've got questions, let me have them. Let's talk through it. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Keep moving forward.